I'm Thomas Mellons, curator of special exhibitions at the Museum of the City of New York.
My name is Sarah Henry. I'm the deputy director and chief curator of the museum, and we're here to see Campaigning for President, New York and the American Election.
From 1868 to 1956, there was a New Yorker running for president or vice president in all but 2 elections. Since 1956, however, that has changed. Because New York is so firmly in the Democratic camp, national parties have tended to stay away from New York and have come here for media attention and have come here to raise money, but have come here less looking for candidates and indeed looking for votes.
That's a real shift in terms of the centrality of New York candidates.
And it's particularly interesting in terms of New York's role, because not only is Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who's president from 1932 until his death in 1944, being elected president an unprecedented 4 times, not only is Roosevelt from New York, but as he is creating his New Deal, which transforms presidential politics and indeed American government, he turns to New Yorkers as his key advisors. And their ideas can be seen as reflecting aspects of New York politics and approaches to politics that had been established in New York for quite some time. In some ways, the New Deal and the policies of this era, initiated by Franklin Roosevelt, can be seen as a kind of New Yorkification of national politics.
Interesting in the period after the New Deal, the degree to which both parties fought to associate themselves with New York, to win New York votes, and to align themselves with the political strategies that have become identified with New York. And this caused some major rifts in the election of 1948. Harry Truman made a decision to align himself and the Democratic ticket with the New York Northeastern liberal wing of the Democratic Party. And he became the first president, sitting president, to campaign in Harlem. And this alienates the southern wing of the Democratic Party and leads to a split.
The nation's earliest presidential elections did not include campaigning as we know it. It isn't until after 1826, when owning property is dropped as a requirement for voting, that large numbers of ordinary citizens get directly involved, and candidates shift their attention from people with political power to people who are, in a sense, newly empowered. It's not until this happens that there's a proliferation of campaign material, of memorabilia.
Campaigning changed in its very nature. Suddenly it was a public display. People would take to the streets, showcasing their partisanship, their loyalty to the candidates, their enthusiasm for their parties.
Candidates are always confronted, or immediately confronted, with a choice. Do they go what we would call positive and talk about their ideas and their ideals, or do they go what we would call negative and directly attack their opponent? And what's interesting about negative campaigning is it receives a lot of attention now, but what many people don't necessarily know is that there is absolutely nothing new in this.
One of the most important elections in American history took place in 1896, when William Jennings Bryan faces off against William McKinley. And it's also one that produced a tremendous amount of really vivid memorabilia, and a lot of very vicious negative campaigning went on in this election. So dirty politics has been part of American campaigning virtually from the beginning, but as campaigning went more public, and as more and more propaganda and memorabilia was created, it becomes more and more visible. So you see in the election of 1896 some of the most deliciously vicious things that have ever been produced. One of the nastier aspects of it were rumors that William McKinley had fathered an interracial child out of wedlock. And one of the most shocking to our modern eyes objects in the exhibition is this doll. It's William McKinley on the top, and when you turn it over, there's a little African-American baby underneath. A lot of manufacturers got into the game and started to create objects with which they would sell equally to the supporters of either side. There are I Like Ike and Stevenson for President popcorn boxes. You wouldn't see this now, I don't think, but you have the Stevenson for President and the I Like Ike cigarettes. pretty much any garment that people would wear, somebody would put a presidential insignia on, from socks to suspenders to dresses to aprons. There's almost nothing that isn't emblazoned with the name of a presidential candidate. Campaigning for President, New York and the American election is a collaboration between the Museum of the City of New York and the Museum of Democracy, showcasing a vast collection assembled by the late Jordan Wright.
You look at some of the objects that are on view here, and you begin to wonder, well, what links these? What links the ideas with the objects? Well, I think that one of the principal things that links these is the notion of participation, that a democracy rests on its citizens participating, that we aren't subjects in a monarchy, but we are indeed citizens in a democracy, and part of the responsibility of being a citizen is to participate, and part of the way that we do that is to partake in presidential campaigns and to wear and to display and to use all sorts of memorabilia of the kind that are on view here.